Something happened at Brown's practice this week that nobody saw coming. A routine Wednesday session, normally quiet, controlled, predictable, suddenly felt like the entire season shifted in a single afternoon. Players on the sideline were whispering, coaches were tense, and even reporters watching from a distance knew something was off. It wasn't the usual back and forth between two quarterbacks fighting for reps. It looked like one guy taking over and another guy losing ground fast. From the moment the first team jogged out, the energy felt different. Every throw, every decision, every snap carried weight. Like everyone understood these reps were going to decide more than just the depth chart. And as the session kept rolling, the gap between the two quarterbacks didn't stay subtle. It widened right in front of the entire building. You could feel it shift the air. Players started reacting differently. Coaches changed their tone and the vibe. Around the offense went from scattered to locked in the second Shedeur Sanders stepped under center. But the real spark wasn't a single highlight or mistake. It was the way people responded, how fast the sideline started choosing a side. And once that momentum started building, there was no turning it off. By the time practice wrapped, the conversation in the locker room wasn't about competition anymore. It was about what the Browns were going to do next. And what came after this practice would only raise more questions and turn up the pressure on everyone involved. The moment the quarterbacks lined up for the very first 7-on-7 reps, anyone paying attention could feel the shift coming. These weren't warm-ups. They weren't scripted confidence-building tosses. These were evaluation reps, real ones, and the tone was set instantly. What unfolded next felt less like a competition and more like the unveiling of two entirely different quarterbacks moving in completely opposite directions. Shedeur Sanders took the first snap with a conviction that immediately tightened the entire offense. His footwork was crisp, his posture calm, and his eyes were already scanning downfield before some defenders even finished settling into their zones. When he released the opening throw, a timing out route that hit the receiver exactly where the concept demanded, the sideline responded instantly. It wasn't applause or noise. It was that subtle electric shift teammates feel when something is right. Receivers nodded. Linemen straightened up. Coaches leaned forward. Then came Dillon Gabriel's first rep, and the contrast hit like a cold splash of water. Gabriel hesitated on his drop, double-clutched, and delivered a pass half a beat late, forcing his receiver to twist awkwardly just to keep the ball off the turf. The offense didn't react dramatically, but the tension was there. Silent, heavy, obvious. Back-to-back sequences only made the divide more glaring. Sanders processed reads effortlessly, delivering throws before routes fully bloomed. His timing synced perfectly with the offense, like he'd been running it for years. Meanwhile, Gabriel's rhythm sputtered. Delayed releases, uneven footwork, balls drifting behind targets. Every misfire broke timing the coaches had drilled into the receivers for weeks. Within minutes, the tone of practice stopped being competitive and instead turned revealing. Teammates subtly shifted their body language. Receivers jogging back toward Sanders after reps. Linemen communicating more confidently with him. And even defensive players quietly acknowledging the difference in command. What was supposed to be just another day of camp quickly became something far bigger. In the opening reps alone, the Browns didn't just witness two quarterbacks performing. They witnessed two paths diverging. And for the first time, the entire building could clearly see which direction the offense wanted and needed to go. The moment Shedeur Sanders stepped onto the field, the entire tone of practice shifted in a way that coaches couldn't ignore. It wasn't just cleaner execution or quicker reads. It was the feeling that the offense suddenly had direction. Reports from inside the facility say the transformation was instant. What had looked chaotic, tense, and inconsistent under Gabriel suddenly felt controlled and confident with Sanders leading the huddle. Observers noticed that Sanders didn't ease into the reps. He took command from the first snap. His rhythm was unmistakable. Rapid progressions, sharp footwork, and ball placement that seemed to hit receivers exactly where the route concepts demanded. Rather than forcing tight throws or second-guessing reads, he delivered the ball with a sense of timing that elevated everyone around him. Veteran receivers exchanged looks as if they suddenly recognized the offensive structure they'd been missing all camp. And it wasn't just the accuracy. The tempo itself changed. With Sanders operating the system, the offense moved with a faster, more deliberate pace. Coaches didn't have to reset drills as often. The ball came out on time, drives flowed naturally, and plays chained together the way they're designed to on paper. Insiders said the offense finally looked like an NFL operation, and the players felt it immediately. Contrast that with what had happened earlier in the day. Under Gabriel, sources describe hesitation creeping into the pocket, routes breaking down, and timing falling apart. But once Sanders took over, the receivers ran their patterns with more purpose. The linemen looked more stable in protection, and the energy across the unit shifted from cautious to confident. By the time Sanders launched the deep touchdown that split two defenders, it felt like the moment the entire practice clicked into place. Not because it was a highlight throw, but because it symbolized what the offense became with him at the controls. Decisive, explosive, and fully aligned. The coaches didn't need to say anything. The players didn't either. Everyone saw what the offense looked like with Sanders running it, and there was no going back after that. The tension that had been building all afternoon finally erupted the moment Dillon Gabriel realized what everyone around him already sensed. His grip on the quarterback job was slipping fast. What began as quiet frustration turned into a full-blown sideline confrontation that stunned players, staffers, and even veteran coaches who thought they'd seen it all. According to multiple insiders, Gabriel grew increasingly rattled as teammates continued drifting. Towards Shedeur Sanders between reps, receivers huddled closer to him. Running backs lingered in his space. Even linemen, usually the most neutral group on the field, shifted their alignment toward Sanders, as if gravitating to the quarterback who made their jobs easier. For Gabriel, it wasn't just about struggling throws anymore. It was the humiliation of watching the locker room's confidence migrate right in front of him. The breaking point came after another stalled drive, this one collapsing under an overthrow followed by a blown timing route. As Sanders prepared for the next series, Gabriel approached him near the sideline, visibly upset. Teammates reported his frustration wasn't subtle. His voice raised, his gestures sharp, his expression showing the pressure boiling over. He confronted Sanders over the growing shift in team loyalty, arguing that seniority and draft position should still matter. But Sanders didn't take the bait. Witnesses said he stayed calm, simply pointing back toward the field as if to say, "The results speak for themselves." That moment of quiet confidence only added fuel to the fire. Staffers rushed in instantly, sensing the situation was seconds away from spiraling out of control. Players closed in, forming a protective circle around both quarterbacks before things escalated. Coaches scrambled to separate them, redirecting attention back to drills, and trying to contain what insiders described as one of the most uncomfortable scenes of the entire offseason. The confrontation only lasted a few seconds, but its impact was massive. It revealed the internal fracture that everyone felt, but no one wanted to say out loud. For the first time, Gabriel realized the battle wasn't slipping away. It was already lost, and everyone on that field knew it. What happened after practice might have been even more revealing than the confrontation itself. Coaches didn't need to say a single word. Their silence told the entire story. Rumors inside the facility suggest that the staff looked genuinely shaken, almost as if they just witnessed the quarterback hierarchy flip in real time and weren't prepared for how fast it unfolded. Several reporters later noted that Kevin Stefanski avoided every question related to reps, performance differences, or the sideline altercation. And while he didn't confirm anything, insiders say his body language made one thing clear. The coaching staff knew the shift toward Sanders had already begun. Behind closed doors, things felt even more complicated. According to people familiar with the team's internal dynamics, the front office seemed split. Some personnel executives reportedly felt uncomfortable, knowing they'd invested in Gabriel as a long-term developmental option. Others were said to be privately relieved, believing Sanders' rise might save the organization. From a prolonged quarterback debate stretching into the season, these conversations were never made public, but the buzz inside the building hinted at an organization scrambling to realign its plans. Ownership's reaction was another layer entirely. While unconfirmed, several league insiders claim the front office had been monitoring Sanders closely, hoping he would validate the bold decision to draft him. And after witnessing the reports coming out of practice, it's been said that ownership felt vindicated, almost energized by how quickly Sanders took command. Again, none of this has been officially stated, but the whispers around the league point toward a franchise realizing its future may have arrived sooner than expected. The coaching staff understood the magnitude of what happened. Their challenge wasn't evaluating talent anymore. Everyone saw the gap with their own eyes. Their focus shifted toward managing the fallout, protecting Gabriel's confidence, and preventing the locker room from fracturing. But even with all the damage control efforts, the atmosphere felt different. Players sensed a turning point, staffers felt the momentum shift, and the organization collectively recognized that Wednesday's practice wasn't just another day at camp. It may be weeks before the Browns make any public announcement, but internally, speculation suggests the decision has already been made. Inside the locker room, the atmosphere shifted in ways that no stat sheet or press conference could ever capture. Players won't admit it publicly, but insiders suggest fault lines began forming almost immediately after practice ended. Not because anyone wanted drama, but because Wednesday's performance made it impossible to ignore the growing divide. According to those familiar with the team's internal dynamics, several veterans quietly gravitated towards Sanders, drawn not by hype or draft buzz, but by the simple reality of how much smoother the offense operated with him in control. It wasn't anything dramatic, just subtle nods, brief conversations, and a noticeable change in who players chose to stand beside. Younger players reportedly felt the shift too, though they handled it more cautiously. Many of them still respect Gabriel, understanding the pressure he's facing, but the energy around him felt different. Sources describe the atmosphere near Gabriel's locker as tense, almost uncertain, like teammates were giving him space without knowing whether he wanted support or distance. Nobody wanted to disrespect him, but everyone sensed the emotional weight he carried after being outperformed so decisively. Sanders, meanwhile, didn't need to say much. Rumors claim he stayed calm, interacting with teammates naturally, never acting like someone who had won anything. That quiet confidence only pulled more players toward him. Leadership isn't just about talent, it's about presence. And on that day, Sanders' presence filled the room in a way that caught people off guard. Coaches noticed the locker room dynamics immediately. According to one insider, the staff tried to keep the environment balanced, checking in with Gabriel while also acknowledging the excitement surrounding Sanders. But balance can only go so far when the entire organization feels a shift happening in real time. Some players reportedly tried to reassure Gabriel, telling him it was just one practice. Others stayed neutral, not wanting to choose sides in a competition that suddenly felt much bigger than expected. But regardless of anyone's intentions, the locker room energy didn't lie. What unfolded that afternoon wasn't conflict. It was clarity. And clarity inside a locker room is impossible to reverse. As the dust settles from yet another brutal meltdown, the Cleveland Browns find themselves staring at uncomfortable truths that can no longer be avoided. Inside Berea, this moment isn't just about a single loss, a single blown lead, or even a single decision by Kevin Stefanski or the coaching staff. No, this has become an organizational reckoning, a top-to-bottom evaluation that reaches into the past 3 drafts, the quarterback room, the coaching philosophy, and the long-term direction of the franchise. What once looked like a promising, competitive window now feels shaky, and the front office is being forced to confront just how many of their decisions have aged poorly under pressure. Across league circles, executives are reportedly questioning the Browns' drafting strategy, especially the choices made at premium positions. Analysts have pointed out a pattern. Athletic upside is prioritized, but readiness, consistency, and football IQ sometimes take a back seat. It's a high-risk, high-reward approach, but after repeated collapses, the risks have begun to outweigh the rewards. The most painful part? Several players the Browns passed on in recent drafts are now thriving as cornerstones of their respective teams, which only intensifies the scrutiny. At the center of this storm is the quarterback situation. Cleveland's insistence on sticking with their current QB1 while ignoring opportunities to develop or invest in a long-term option has baffled many. Internally, this has ignited heated debates about whether the team misread the market, overestimated certain players, or simply failed to adapt when the warning signs were already flashing. But perhaps the most pressing issue is accountability. Who bears responsibility for the repeated failures in clutch moments? Is it the coaching staff failing to make key adjustments? Is it the front office misjudging talent and depth? Or is it a deeper cultural problem, one where expectations have grown, but standards haven't evolved with them? One thing is certain: the Browns can no longer outrun these questions. The organization is being forced to examine every draft board, every scouting report, every development plan, and every leadership decision. And unless real changes are made, this collapse won't be remembered as an isolated failure. It will be remembered as the moment Cleveland's entire blueprint cracked in plain sight. The timing of this collapse could not be worse for the Cleveland Browns, because everything now funnels directly into what might be the defining moment of their season. The looming showdown with the Baltimore Ravens. This isn't just another divisional game. It's a flashpoint, a measuring stick, and possibly the hinge on which the entire campaign swings. The Ravens are not just good. They are disciplined, explosive, and ruthless in capitalizing on the exact types of mistakes the Browns have been unable to correct. And that's what makes this moment so critical. Cleveland isn't walking into this matchup with momentum. They're walking in with doubt. Inside the locker room, players know what this game means. It's not just about rivalry pride or AFC North bragging rights. It's about credibility. If the Browns can't respond after a collapse of this magnitude, then it signals something much deeper: a team that can't stabilize under adversity. And facing Baltimore's relentless physicality, their defensive complexity, and their surgically efficient offense, the Browns will need more than talent. They'll need resilience, clarity, and a unified sense of purpose that has been missing in recent weeks. For the front office, this matchup is just as revealing. Games like this expose whether the roster was constructed with enough leadership, mental toughness, and adaptability to withstand pressure. If Cleveland falters badly, expect the national narrative to shift dramatically, from a team with potential to a franchise stuck in the same cycle. For fans, the Ravens game has become a litmus test, not just of performance, but of identity. Do the Browns have a backbone? Can they regroup? Can they show growth instead of regression? And for Kevin Stefanski, this might be the most consequential regular season game of his tenure. A strong response could calm the storm and restore confidence. A collapse, on the other hand, could send the season and the public's faith in his leadership spiraling. That's why this moment matters. This isn't simply a week on the schedule. It's a crossroads where the Browns can either rewrite the narrative or watch it harden into something far harder to escape. At the end of the day, Browns fans aren't just watching another season unfold. They're living through another chapter of emotional whiplash that has become far too familiar. This meltdown, the finger-pointing, the sideline blow-ups, and the growing disconnect between players and coaches have all led us to one unavoidable question. What would you do if you were running this team? Because it genuinely feels like Cleveland is standing at a crossroads, and every possible direction comes with consequences. Do you double down on Kevin Stefanski and trust that he can steadier the ship, even as frustration inside the building appears to be growing? Or do you decide that this collapse, paired with the same recurring issues year after year, is finally the breaking point? If you were in charge, would you pull the plug now or let the season play out and risk further unraveling? And then there's the quarterback situation. Do you stick with Dillon Gabriel, who has moments of poise but continues to struggle under pressure? Or do you pivot to Shedeur Sanders, a move that would ignite the fan base but could deepen the tension behind the scenes? But maybe the bigger question isn't about individuals. Maybe it's about direction. What kind of team do the Browns want to be? A steady, conservative operation that hopes to win with discipline and execution, or a bold, aggressive franchise willing to shake things up and make uncomfortable decisions to chase a spark? Right now, the identity is blurry, and that's exactly why fans are so divided. This is your moment to weigh in. Imagine you're in Jimmy Haslam's seat, watching the locker room crack, watching national media pile on, watching a fan base on edge. Do you intervene? Do you ride it out? Do you demand changes? Or do you believe this team still has the heart to respond? Because one thing is clear, the season isn't over, but the window to save it is closing fast. And every move from this point on will shape not just the next game, but the future of the franchise. So tell me, what would you do?